He didn't grow up in a palace. He didn't dream of power. He just wanted to serve his country. But from the dusty fields of Kansas to the battlefields of Europe, from a simple soldier to the President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower led the world through war and into peace. This is not just the story of a general or a president. This is the journey of a man who never wanted fame, but changed history forever. Stay with us, because the ending is not what you expect. Chapter 1. A Boy from Abilene. Dwight David Eisenhower was born on October 14, 1890, in Denison, Texas, but his real story began in Abilene, Kansas. He was the third of 7 boys in a hard-working religious family. Life wasn't easy. His parents, David and Ida Eisenhower, taught their sons to work hard, be honest, and stay strong through struggles. These lessons shaped Dwight's character. They called him Ike, a nickname that stayed with him all his life. Growing up in Abilene, young Ike loved sports, books, and the outdoors. He read history books and dreamed of becoming a soldier. But his family didn't have much money. He worked in a creamery before and after school to help the family. Even with hardship, Ike stayed cheerful. He believed that effort mattered more than luck. His strength came from discipline, not complaints. One day, he had a serious leg injury while playing. The doctor thought it might need to be cut off, but Ike refused to give up. He fought through pain and healed. That courage, even as a boy, showed the kind of man he would become. Determined, calm, and brave. Abilene made him tough. It gave him a strong sense of fairness, loyalty, and love for his country. These early years didn't look special from the outside, but inside, a leader was growing, a boy who would one day lead the free world. And though he left Abilene, Abilene never left him. Chapter 2. The Soldier's Path begins. After finishing high school, Dwight Eisenhower wanted more than just a local job. He applied to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where only a few were chosen each year. In 1911, after a long wait and hard work, he was finally accepted. It was a dream come true. At West Point, Eisenhower wasn't the best student, but he was steady, focused, and known for his leadership skills. He also made lifelong friends and gained respect for his discipline and quiet strength. In 1915, he graduated and joined the U.S. Army. World War I was happening, but Eisenhower didn't get sent to Europe. Instead, he trained tank crews in the U.S. He felt disappointed at first, thinking he missed his chance to prove himself, but this time helped him grow as a commander and understand military planning. He studied great battles from history and learned how important preparation was in war. During the years between wars, Eisenhower worked under several top generals, including Douglas MacArthur. He traveled to the Philippines, where he learned even more about leadership, politics, and diplomacy. Though promotions were slow in peacetime, Eisenhower kept climbing through the ranks. His honesty, intelligence, and teamwork stood out. He wasn't a loud or flashy officer, but people trusted him. By the late 1930s, storms were brewing again in Europe. A Second World War was coming, and the quiet soldier from Abilene was about to rise to his greatest challenge yet. Chapter 3. The Rise of a War Leader. When World War II broke out in 1939, Eisenhower was still a colonel, working behind the scenes. But his calm nature, ability to organize large tasks, and talent for planning made him stand out. In 1941, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. entered the war. America needed strong, smart leaders, and Eisenhower was soon called to Washington, D.C. General George C. Marshall, the Army Chief of Staff, saw his potential and gave him more responsibility. Eisenhower quickly rose in rank. He was chosen to lead major operations overseas. In 1942, he was sent to lead the Allied forces in North Africa. It was a tough job. British and American forces had to work together, and many challenges lay ahead. But Eisenhower kept a cool head. He believed in teamwork, not ego. He gained trust from both American and British leaders, including Prime Minister Winston Churchill. After success in North Africa, Eisenhower led the invasion of Italy. But his biggest test came in 1944, the D-Day invasion of Normandy. As Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, Eisenhower had to plan the largest military invasion in history. He oversaw thousands of ships, planes, and soldiers from different countries. The pressure was huge. On June 6, 1944, the invasion began, and it was a success. It marked the turning point of the war in Europe. Eisenhower became a hero, but he stayed humble. He gave credit to the troops, not himself. He believed leadership meant serving others, not seeking fame. The world had seen a quiet general rise to greatness. Chapter 4. From Victory to Politics. After Germany surrendered in May 1945, World War II in Europe was over. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was praised around the world as the man who helped lead the Allies to victory. Yet even during celebrations, Eisenhower stayed calm. He visited concentration camps and saw the horrors of the Holocaust. These moments left a deep mark on him. He believed the world must never forget the crimes of war and the importance of peace. In 1945, he returned to the U.S. as a national hero. People called him Ike, and the phrase "I like Ike" became popular. But instead of running for office right away, he became Army Chief of Staff, helping to reshape the military during peacetime. Later, he served as president of Columbia University, hoping to influence education and policy. He wanted to stay out of politics, but politics wouldn't leave him alone. In 1950, President Truman asked Eisenhower to take command of NATO forces in Europe to protect against the growing Soviet threat. Eisenhower accepted and helped build the military alliance that would shape the Cold War. Still, many Americans wanted him to become president. Both Democrats and Republicans asked him to join their side, but Ike was a private man, unsure if politics was his place. By 1952, the country was tired of war, corruption, and the conflict in Korea. The Republican Party begged Eisenhower to run for president. Finally, he said yes. He promised honesty, peace, and strong leadership. With his war record, calm spirit, and clear vision, he won the hearts of millions, and the path to the White House was set. Chapter 5. Leading America. The presidential years begin. In 1953, Dwight D. Eisenhower became the 34th President of the United States. He was calm, strong, and trusted by the people. Though he had no experience in politics, his leadership skills from the battlefield helped him guide the country through difficult times. One of his first challenges was the Korean War. Eisenhower had promised to end the war, and within months a peace agreement was signed. It was one of his earliest victories as president. Eisenhower believed in modern republicanism. He wanted the government to be responsible with money, but also to care for the people. He expanded Social Security, increased the minimum wage, and invested in education. But he also worked hard to stop government overspending. He was not loud or emotional. He preferred quiet action, steady progress, and peace. One of his biggest achievements was the interstate highway system. Eisenhower had seen the value of good roads during the war. He believed strong highways would help the economy, improve travel, and strengthen national defense. Under his plan, thousands of miles of highways were built, changing American life forever. Eisenhower also faced big global challenges. The Cold War with the Soviet Union was growing. He focused on peace through strength. He believed in strong weapons as a way to stop war, not start one. He avoided sending troops into new wars and used diplomacy and careful decisions to protect the nation. At home and abroad, Eisenhower's quiet strength shaped a new era. Chapter 6. Standing for Peace and Justice. As president, Dwight D. Eisenhower faced not only international threats, but also deep problems at home. The 1950s were a time of great change in America. One of the biggest issues was civil rights. African Americans were fighting for equal treatment, especially in schools, buses, and voting. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation in public schools was illegal. This was the famous case called Brown versus Board of Education. At first, Eisenhower was cautious. He believed in following the law, but he also didn't want to divide the country. However, in 1957, something happened that made him take strong action. In Little Rock, Arkansas, 9 black students were not allowed to enter a white school, even though the court said they could. Angry crowds gathered. The governor refused to protect the students, so Eisenhower sent federal troops to escort the children safely into the school. It was a bold move that showed he would defend the Constitution. While dealing with civil rights, Eisenhower also worked to keep America peaceful and strong. He met with world leaders to lower nuclear tensions. In 1955, he proposed the Open Skies Plan, where both the US and the Soviet Union could fly over each other's land to make sure neither side was preparing for war. The Soviets said no, but the idea showed Eisenhower's desire for peace. At home, he warned Americans not to give too much power to the military industry. In his last years in office, he spoke of the military-industrial complex, a system that could grow too large and dangerous. He believed peace was the best strength a country could have. Chapter 7. Farewell to the White House. As Dwight D. Eisenhower approached the end of his second term, America was changing fast. The economy had grown, the middle class was stronger, and more people owned homes, cars, and televisions. But beneath the surface, new problems were rising. The Cold War continued. Civil rights struggles were growing, and tensions with other countries still existed. Eisenhower had led the nation with calmness and careful thinking. Though some people wanted him to run for a third term, he said no. He believed 2 terms were enough. In January 1961, he gave his famous farewell speech. It wasn't full of celebration. Instead, it was a warning. He spoke about the military-industrial complex, the connection between the military, business, and government. Eisenhower had been a great general, but he didn't want the country to depend too much on war or weapons. He warned that if defense companies gained too much power, they might influence decisions about war and peace for their own benefit. He told Americans to be watchful and wise. Eisenhower's time as president ended, but his legacy remained strong. He had kept the country stable during dangerous years. He avoided war, protected the economy, and started the first serious steps toward civil rights. Even those who didn't always agree with him respected his honesty and steady leadership. After leaving the White House, Eisenhower returned to his farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where he lived with his wife Mamie. But even in retirement, he still cared deeply about his country. Chapter 8. Final Years and Lasting Legacy. After leaving the White House, Dwight D. Eisenhower settled into a quiet life on his farm in Gettysburg. He enjoyed the peaceful days with his wife Mamie and often walked through the fields or painted as a hobby. But he was not completely removed from politics. Presidents after him, like John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson, often sought his advice. Though Eisenhower never tried to control their decisions, he always offered his thoughts when asked. He believed that being a good leader meant staying humble, even after leaving power. During these years, Eisenhower wrote his memoirs and reflected on his life. He visited his old military friends, gave speeches, and traveled when his health allowed. But his heart problems continued, and in 1969, at the age of 78, he passed away in Washington, D.C. The entire nation mourned. Thousands of Americans lined the streets as his body was carried through the Capitol. He was buried at the Eisenhower Presidential Library in Abilene, Kansas, his boyhood home. Even decades after his death, Eisenhower's influence remains strong. He's remembered not just as a war hero, but as a president who led with calmness and caution during a tense time. His decision to build the interstate highway system changed America forever. His warning about the military-industrial complex is still talked about today. Many historians rank him as one of the most respected and balanced presidents in U.S. history. Dwight D. Eisenhower left behind more than buildings and speeches. He left behind a belief in service, honesty, and quiet strength. When the world was at war, he stood calm in the storm. When America was afraid, he gave it roads to move forward. When power tempted others, he warned us to be wise. Dwight D. Eisenhower didn't shout. He didn't demand. He led with courage, with patience, and with heart. Today, his words still echo. His decisions still shape the world we live in. And his story of duty, discipline, and quiet strength reminds us what true leadership really means. If this inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and follow Glorious English for more powerful stories that touch the soul and teach the language of greatness. What do you admire most about Eisenhower's journey? Tell us in the comments. I'd love to read your thoughts.